Okay, I want to continue talking about things, but I don't know which things. So, the tentative feeling I'm getting is talking more about the nervous system. And the nervous system keeps you locked in to a state of stress when it is feeling unbalanced, unregulated, right? You can have an extremely active parasympathetic nervous system or an extremely active sympathetic nervous system. I think what that means is the sympathetic nervous system is what we associate with stress and activation, like adrenaline, I suppose, like feelings of like excitement and exhilaration, both in a bad and a good sense, like painful and unpainful, pleasant. And the nervous system then, can enter into these parasympathetic states, which are, I guess, a tendency more towards relaxation. And again, that can have its bad sides as well, like a total kind of lethargical, I don't know. There's probably bad states of parasympathetic as well. But it seems that it's in the imbalance between the two that problems emerge. Maybe an excess of either leads to these states of fight, flight, freeze, because fight and flight is very clearly like an excess of excitement, running away, flee. There's an excitement to the nerves that is permanent. It's imbalanced in the sense that it doesn't just stay there and then reduce itself back down. It stays there permanently, like chronically for a long time. You stay in that state of sympathetic activation. And maybe, like I said, maybe it's not so clear-cut as sympathetic, parasympathetic, because maybe there's ways in which an excessive parasympathetic nervous system can also lead to heightened states in other ways that I don't quite understand. But in any case, it seems to be that there is an issue of imbalance sometimes in the nervous system that produces these, let's say, undesired effects that we would call pain or suffering. Because even if they're pleasurable, right, it can still be painful in the sense that you might have an activated addiction, so to speak, like an excess of pleasure that you can't stop feeling, right? The lines between addiction and pleasure and pain are a little difficult to navigate, I think. And maybe addiction is a good place to go, because I think that an activated, imbalanced nervous system seems to lead to some sort of addiction. In fact, mental health problems may have a root in addiction or have something to do with addiction at a very strong level, I feel. Again, judging from what I've been reading about nervous system stuff in the whole parasympathetic, sympathetic, vagus nerves, these sorts of therapeutic models that focus on the nervous system, these are that, like, anyway, I'm taking a lot of my ideas from there. Anyway, the thinking so much about, okay, addiction, right? Addiction is repetitive behavior, you could say. Yeah. And repetition, as in addiction, doing the same thing again and again, right? Drinking the same drink, having the same experience. In a sense, you're not having the same experience. You're chasing. Maybe you're choosing, not in the sense that addiction is a choice, but you're choosing. You're like forced to choose by your nervous system the same option again and again and again. You may get different results every time, but you're sort of choosing the same path of action. Again, I think this is because the nervous system is obsessed with meeting a certain goal, like running away from the lion. And if that goal isn't met, which it isn't, because the lion isn't present, the specifics of the physical environment that is frightening you aren't present. They are imagined more than present. There is a higher degree of imagination in what's happening, and memory, so to speak, muscle memory of different kinds. But in any case, you're still choosing to act in a way that obtains that effect. But since the physical situation is different, you're not going to obtain that effect. But you don't care. You just try and try and try. It's kind of like being trapped in a dream where, you're trying to escape from a place and there's constant strange setbacks where, I don't know, the house starts transforming into a monster and then it transforms into something else. But that doesn't deter you very often. Like, you still pursue the same path of action even if it leads to the same effects, because what's important to you at that point is pursuing that path of action. The path of action is more important than the effects you're obtaining. The path of action is the idea you have in your head, after all. So, that's where a lot of psychoanalysis stuff comes in, right? Because repetitive ideas lead us into the domain of symbol and archetype. Repetitive ideas that have a strong symbolic meaning. Opening the door, cleaning your hands, escaping from a monster. These are sort of ideas. It's almost as if when opportunities emerge in the physical world to enact these little stories, these little symbolic stories, you take them, regardless of whether the material situation allows itself to be acted in this archetypal way that you seek. In a way, the addictive component there is that you're never going to reach this ideal world through pursuing physical domains in that way. There needs to be a psychological process that takes place inside of you. So there needs to be a mental process that takes place in order for this mental stuff to resolve itself. Of course, this involves your physical behavior. You need to behave in a different way. But still, I think that